I was a reporter, I covered Jim Cleary. But my first president was your first president, Dr. Blenda Wilson. And then while we've had our tenure as 4 official presidents, but I think with all the interims and the temporaries, we have 9?
Oh, my gosh.
I think it was 9. How do you keep that sense of direction and passion with that change of leadership at all times? Even the interims have visions, however short along their tenure is.
I think being politically savvy. I think all good leaders have to have the ability to manage up. And my job as a leader at whatever level I'm at is to see the vision that the other person have and figure out what are the connecting points. There are always connecting points. And my Strengths Quest, my Clifton Strengths profile has connectedness in it. So all things happen for a reason. I believe that. And I want to figure out, what is it that drives you? What are you passionate about? And what is it that we can take off your hands? Because I think that's the opportunity that we had with the Veterans Resource Center and the Pride Center. Because, you know, we gave, our board of directors voted to approve space for those facilities. And the students were supposed to come up with the money to actually operate them, because there's a regulation in the CSU for auxiliary organizations that we cannot give our space away for free. Everybody has to pay rent. So what we did is we gave them that opportunity. It didn't come to fruition, but we knew that there was still a need. And I said, okay, well, how does this fit into our mission? Is this something that we would like to operate? And the students said, wow, that would be great, you know. And then we negotiated with the university. It's like, we'd like to take this responsibility on. So that's number one, how we integrate ourselves into the university. And, you know, what president doesn't want an auxiliary who is well run to run something for them so that they can save on the resources and the students are invested in the outcome? It just makes sense.
But you've also you've sent a message to communities that often get overlooked, particularly like the Veterans Center or the undocumented students who can make people feel uncomfortable, including the Pride Center. But one forgets that the veterans also, in an academic environment, are othered. We forget that they are othered because they have a lived experience so much different than what a traditional student looks like. But you've sent a message to 3 communities that are historically othered but not talked about as othered until recently, that they're welcome.
We see you
in a gorgeous environment.
and I think that's what students are looking for, you know, because students wander into a place because it looks like it's going to be comfortable, like they're going to look like they're going to belong. They have a sense of that they can be their authentic self in that place. So our job is to create that. So we're not the creators of that. We are the people that provide the environment in which it can be created. And it's created by the students. So even when we're working with our architects and they're kind of designing furniture, we have, you know, we used to call them sit-ins a long time ago, but nobody understands that terminology anymore. But we bring in seating and let the students test it. Does that work for you? Would you sit in this for 2 hours? Or no, this is a 15-minute chair, you know, whatever it is. But we do that all the time. And that's another example of co-creation. And I think the thing that we're trying to do right now is really to close the loop on any kind of assessment that we do. Because a lot of times what happens is there's a study done and a report gets written, and sometimes action is taken, and sometimes there's no action taken. And we don't want to be the people who don't take action. We want to be the people who take action. There's assessment data. We analyze it. We draw valid conclusions. We test it. We try something. We retest it. And then we establish whatever it is that we're going to do. And even like when I gave the example of the chair, the nap pods, it didn't work for 20 minutes, but it works for 45. So continuing to assess what we do and then tell students, you are the ones that told us to do this. So we're being responsive to what you suggested, and then we're going to try it out and we're going to test it. And when it's no longer needed, then we can do something else. Because some things need to go away, Is
that the privilege, and I would call it the privilege, of working with students? Because each generation of students evolves, and there's no shame in saying, we don't need that anymore. Why the heck do you have that?
Exactly. That is truly, if I can use the word privilege, it is truly a privilege. Because you can look at anything, a problem, as a problem, but our perspective is this is an opportunity to serve, an opportunity to assist, an opportunity to support, it's an opportunity to show students that we care. And sometimes even if you make a mistake, if people know your heart and know you care, then we can come back from there, because all of us are going to make mistakes. None of us are perfect. But what comes out of that is that conversation and that dialogue and the willingness to actually have those difficult conversations and stick in there long enough to get to the other side.
And to listen.
Yes.
Because difficult conversations usually shut down and become defensive.
Yes.
But you got to humble pie a little.
I think that's important, because I think most people go into a conversation already defensive and already defending their position, as opposed to just listen. I end up taking a lot of notes, and then I reflect back what I heard. So did I really get that? And then that allows people, it's like, well, you got that part, but that wasn't quite what I was saying. So then you can continue the dialogue. And once you have a dialogue going, you can do anything. I just think you can do anything from there.
Now, you've been here 30 years, so I'm not going to ask you what is your greatest accomplishment, but what are some of the things you're most proud of to have seen or participated in during your tenure here? Oh,
boy. When I was thinking about, I don't know, well, number one, I think I was proud to work for an African-American woman president, Dr. Blenda Wilson, when I first got here. I think that, and I wanted to do whatever I could to help support her tenure. So I think that was one of the things.
She was one of the first.
Yes. One of the first in the nation, and I think it set the tone for how important representation is that matters. I think, building all the facilities, I think that's great, and I love that. But really what I remember going to a meeting at, I think it was San Jose State, and it was an AOA meeting, which is our auxiliary organizations for the entire CSU. And we had to introduce ourselves, and I looked around the room, and there were 5 former students from CSUN who were now directors, executive directors, or associate directors at other student unions. and auxiliary organizations in the system. I think that to me was one of the most impactful things I had done. I just had such an experience. I love that because it was about people, and I wanted to make sure that as many students as possible, but particularly students of color, could be in these positions to make the same kind of impacts on those particular campuses. So that was impactful for me.
There are a lot of ways to have student helpers or student workers in your area. You can have a student worker and you treat them like a worker, or you can treat the work environment as an educational experience, and that's different. What is your approach, and what do you hope they get out of that out of the experience, and has it evolved in your tenure working with students? Because you were also working with students in New Jersey.
But differently. I think the student empowerment model out here of the nonprofit corporation is a lot different from most of the country. And no other parts of the country really have a nonprofit model. It's more similar to what happens in the United Kingdom and in Canada. So I think I came in more open to, okay, well, if we really listen to students, what could we create? And I think one of the things that I have tried to do is with our staff in particular, because they're all an extension of us, is to emphasize that we are educators outside the classroom. So if you go in with the mindset that you're an educator, it changes your focus. So our job is to develop students. When I was talking about that article, Emanation and Generation, we want the students to grow. At the beginning, we should be giving them direction. At the end, they should be giving that to us. So it's a progression, and our job is to kind of paint that picture for students. What we expect from you in day one is going to be different than what we expect from you in 6 months from now. And in 6 more months from then, we're going to have a higher expectation. And let me tell you why we're doing this. Because we know you have that ability. I am not a big person that I recognize and understand imposter syndrome, but I want to move people beyond that, And how do you do that? You have to challenge people. And you have to give them enough confidence in themselves so they know they can do it. And then you can give them gentle course correction as they're going through the process. Here's something you might want to consider. This is something you might not have been aware of. And let people come over those, take it into their own being. And over time, they change their minds. You're not going to, some students, I've worked with some students and I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm never going to reach this student. And that's the student that'll call me 3 or 4 years later and said, remember when you said, and I don't remember that conversation, but they clearly did, and it had an impact later on. I know I was a pain, but let me tell you what I'm doing now. And I'm like, oh, gosh, that's all I want to hear.
While you work here, you live in the community, and you are a professional. What are some of the biggest misconceptions people have about CSU students, particularly CSUN students? Because when I first started here, CSUN, I heard from the community was, oh, that's my fallback school. You know what I mean? But when you see the students, you've worked with the students, so what are some of the biggest misconceptions people have had over the years about who our students are and what they're capable of?
Just exactly what you just said. That our students, that they feel our students do not have the same capacity or caliber of students at other, maybe private or UC systems. And I don't believe that at all. Because I've seen it, and I've seen what they're doing now. And I'm looking at some of the distinguished alumni and the incredible work that they're doing. And I have always seen that if you invest in students, and students will invest in you and in the institution. And students recognize, that this is a great institution, and their presence makes it greater. We are a teaching institution. That's what we're supposed to be doing. So we're supposed to be educating students about how to be better citizens, better world influencers, all of those things. And we can only do that if we believe in them in totality. So, students come to us, they're not empty vessels when they get here. They have cultural wealth when they come here. And our job is to recognize that gold in them and then continue to shine it. What else can we do that's going to even get you to the next level? Because people are like, well, I want to do this, or I want to make this much money. No, you can make more than that. Or you can have a greater impact than that. I see it because I believe in you. So our job is to be the background singer. The students should be up front and doing whatever they want to do to help advance. And I think the other thing about our students, in terms of a misconception, is that they care only about themselves. And I think that's furthest from the truth. I think our students have a tendency to advocate and support everybody else. And I don't care what ethnicity, cultural background you come from, there's a greater sense of whatever we do, assist everyone to rise. And our students, and they're doing it all despite the obstacles. Our students are the most restorative, problem-solving, ability to navigate and negotiate challenges that I have ever seen. And they don't stop. And if they don't stop, how can we stop? Our job is to support that.
What has been the most impactful lesson you have gotten from our students?
Oh, I get a lesson almost I get a lesson every year, every semester. But, let me just talk about one of the most recent ones is a student who was applying for a position on our board of directors. And she was talking about a work experience and that her supervisor came in and told everybody in the office that you will never be more than you are right now. She said, you're going to be working here the rest of your life, and this is what you're going to do. This is your path in life. She said, because you're not cut out to be more than that. And I think that story really impacted me because I heard that when I was at Rutgers. Look to your left and look to your right. Two of you won't be here, and that was back in the 70s. Mm-hmm. So if there's still, and these are people in the workforce, but it made her decide she was going to do something different. Mm-hmm. So she has a child. She's a scholar parent. She was one of the people selected as the highest ranking student in her college for graduation. She just finished her BA, and she's now going to start her master's. So when I hear those kinds of stories, that's what impacts me. That's what brings tears to my eyes, and I'm like, this is why we're here,
How did you end up staying past 7 years, 6 or 7 years?
Because I believe this is spiritual work. In all honesty, this is about the student union is a vehicle for me to do what I'm supposed to do, and my path is to help other people find theirs. And I may do that in non-traditional ways, but and I think the other piece is a more practical piece. I've always been supported here. And, I've always been given the opportunity to experiment and to challenge the status quo and to do things a little bit differently. I remember even when we were doing the wellness center, and that was when we were having the drought, and you can't put a water feature in there, and and I'm like, yes, we can. We are going to figure it out. Even if we have to do recycled water, we're still going to figure out how to do this. And people supported me and said, okay, if you can figure out a way and do, I like that. I like to be creative. I'm not the artsy kind of person, but I want to creatively be able to solve a problem.
No. I won't call retirement going off into the deep end. It's just a new adventure. It's a new adventure, but what will you miss?
Oh, man. The people, the students that I've worked with over the years. I keep in contact with a lot of my students, and we recently did a program about 2 months ago where we brought back chairs from the various years, and one person was a vice chair from 1993 when I first got here.
Wow.
From 1993 all the way up through last year, 2023. So there was 30 years difference between these people, and they got to come in and meet with the new board members and the new committee members, and they talked about their experience in the USU and what they had taken from it and how they parlayed that into whatever they were doing now. And, somebody was an actress, and somebody was in student affairs, somebody was in film, and somebody was in marketing. So they all had different professions, but they all use what they learned here. And talked about the impact and how that influenced them to continue to give back. Just it's like, okay, I'm going to send you a text message. Will you come? And they're like, yeah, I'm coming. One person's working on their PhD, so that kind of experience, you can't buy that. It's just simply not possible. So when you get that kind of knowing that you are really making, and I said, we're not curing cancer here, but we are making an impact.
What's next?
Lots of things are next for me. I am actually thinking about writing, and I want to write about leadership, but in a different way than I've seen it written about before.
I've never seen leadership written about as a collaborative experience.
Yeah. I'm trying to develop my own theory about leadership, and what I want to call it, I'm not quite sure yet, because I think it involves compassion.
But it also, in talking with you, at least at this time, and it's the wrong word, but it's bottom driven. in a collaborative way, because you're supposed to be serving the students,
Right.
but they're leading.
Yeah.
And what you're doing is getting out of the way and helping to guide.
Yeah. So it's sort, and that's why I think servant leadership kind of really resonates with me. But I think I'm gonna have to come up with my own model, and I just have to. And I think the other part of it is I do believe that leadership is paradoxical. You have to, because people say we have to do either this or that, and I'm like, no, we have to do and. So there's lots of possibilities. Just like there are times when we have to retreat and entrench, but we still have to advance at the same time. You have to do both. So I want to be able to write about that,
It's like a dance.
Yeah,
It's
it
learning
is.
how to dance.
It is a dance. It really is a dance. It's an art, and so it's like leadership is a science and an art. And we have to embrace both sides of that.
Wow, and I'm just thinking, sometimes you have to be a leader who knows when to go back, because you chose being an AVP was not your path, but didn't mean that you were a failed leader just because it's not your path.
Yeah, and a number of people question that, but I had to be secure enough in myself to know what I wanted for me and how best to use my gifts. And that's my choice. And, and other people will do things that they think other people want them to do. And that has not, and I can't say never been a driver for me, but the last 20 or so years, that has not been a driver for me. It's what I feel is most important and how I can use what I've been given to impact the world.
Where would you like to see CSUN head?
Ooh, that's a big question.
Well, you've been here 30 years. You should have some say.
Well, number one, I want us to not just talk our talk. I want us to walk our talk. I want us to, if we're talking about diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, accessibility, then let's be about it. When we're looking at stats and we're looking at the decisions we're making about the people we're bringing on board, are they the best people to move this forward? I don't know. We have opportunities here where we can do things differently. And we have got to get people out of territorial silos and do more cross-functional teams and work groups to really drive product and processes forward. We need to examine what we do. And just because you've done it for 20 years doesn't mean we should keep doing it. Is it impactful? Because if it's not, then perhaps we should stop. And redirect the resources where they really need to go in order to better serve our students. Because we can't forget why we're here in the first place. The why is always important to me. So I would like us to truly embrace what we say we're going to do. And I would like us to do it, and to do it. I think the thing that frustrates me about higher ed is it sometimes moves at glacier speed. And that doesn't work for me. I'm okay even if we make a mistake, but let's just move. Because you can course correct, but you cannot if you're going to, we study and study and study. And then we don't move as quickly as we should. So that would be one of my hopes, for the institution, that we do that.
But you've loved your time here.
I absolutely love my time here. I still love my time here. And I am going to miss the people, the students, and the experiences that I had, but I'm not going to be that far away. I just live in Pasadena.
Debra, thank you Thank you very much for taking part in Matador Memories. And I'm going to thank all of you for joining us for this episode of Matador Memories. I hope you have a wonderful time. And don't forget, you can find Matador Memories on all your favorite podcast platforms, including Spotify, Apple Podcast, and YouTube. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.